There was a time way back when Doug Peterson, this Jackson, there's a team in Jacksonville now. There's a team in Jacksonville. There was a time when Doug Peterson was with the Philadelphia Eagles and led them to a Super Bowl. There was a time this Jalen Hurts was in diapers when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Doug Peterson was the head coach. This Nick Sirianni was in diapers when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I saw it. I was there. It was one of the most amazing things you've ever seen. Doug is back. The Eagles are back. We got 5-5. Start the clock, will you? Thumbs up, subscribe. Hey, you know the drill, right? Welcome in. Let's start with the Jaguars. Why not start with the Doug P, right? Peterson, Doug Peterson, who is now, 5-1 against the spread in the playoffs. That's in the postseason as a head coach. This man covers spreads. Now, you had that one game earlier in week 10. Oh, yeah, where the Chiefs covered. They were favored by 9.5. They won by 10. You know what, though? They were -3 in turnovers. It's a rarity, something that I don't think can clearly happen again. By the way, Peterson's 6-1 against the spread. I don't want to short him by any means. Doug P behind us, leading another team to victory. How about 3 separate fourth quarter comebacks we've seen before the one against the Chargers where they were down big time? We saw that multiple times this year. I think the Chiefs clearly have the advantage at the quarterback spot, but not as big of an advantage overall. First play is Jacksonville +9. All right, next one. I really like this here, and we're going to move to head-to-heads because I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be throwing a lot. And there's a really good pathway here for Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs, to win, to cover, to even blow out the Jacksonville Jaguars, to where the Jaguars are imploding or the Chiefs just aren't doing this with big play after big play. They are moving the football down the field methodically. We've seen shorter passes, quick gets to a guy like Jerick McKinnon, and they haven't been up a ton in which they can kind of exhale and run a clock or even a quarter out. Andy Reid, Mahomes, these guys have been here before. And while Spags' defense hasn't looked great this year, I think that even with some pressure on Lawrence early on, you can cause a turnover, and then you just have Lawrence dropping back. And Peterson's creative enough to make sure that he's just not getting hammered each and every time. All right, let us move to the next game. Our second game here. Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Jalens taking on the New York not Jalens. I mean, this really is about Jalen Hurts, but let's look at this more so than any other play I like from a passing standpoint. 1.5 touchdowns, not bad, but -145 is ridiculous. How about this? All right, longest completion over 37.5. How many? Remember, I watched all these Eagles games for my 50 years. It doesn't matter if you're watching last week or if you're watching the last 50 years. The Eagles' offense stretches the field. They have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, even Dallas Goedert when he's healthy in the middle of the field. Quez Watkins, they want to throw deep. They will throw deep. 38 yards is not that big of an ask when we're
Let's get it. One of the better sports weekends of the year, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Pete McCarthy, Neil Orfield breaking this down for No House Advantage, their pick'em contest where you can hit for up to $15,000 today. And Neil, I mean, how are we feeling going? It's like the last Saturday of football for a long time. It feels like, I guess the XFL or whatever happens in the spring, but this kind of it.
Yes, Ed, I'm not wearing my XFL hat to remind you that the XFL is coming back pretty soon. Yeah, this is exciting, though. We have playoff football, the last full weekend of football, 2 games. Next week, we're going to have the conference championship both on Sunday. So, yeah, the last Saturday, I'm very excited for this, of course. Anybody who's watched any of my content knows I'm excited for the playoff best ball going on right now, but also just, of course, DFS showdown, flash draft, all of the different ways you can try to make some money on these NFL games. It's a fun time of year.
There are a lot of ways to make some money. We're talking about one of them with No House Advantage. We'll deep dive into it over the course of the next 30 minutes for you. First of all, hey, give us a like, subscribe, keep up with our shows or DFS offers or giveaways. If you like playing on No House Advantage, you enjoy having this content, especially, definitely hit that like button. And once you do subscribe, hit that notification button. That'll give you alerts when our shows go live and all the various content that we have to help you out on this divisional round weekend. Also, try to make the Stokastic Hall of Fame. You can change your avatar on various sites, and all you got to do is place top 3 in a contest with 5,000 or more people. It's pretty good cash, and also you get into the Hall of Fame, and you can check out the details on that. Just tweet the win at Stokastic HOF. So, No House Advantage, this is what we got lined up today. A $15 entry contest, $15K to first place. We typically see a lot of overlay in these contests. It is the playoffs, so we'll see how it shakes out today. There's also a $5 entry contest with $1,000 to first place. So 2 games today. What I kind of like to do is just look big picture, what we're expecting in these games. Jaguars, Chiefs. We know the Chiefs are 9-point favorites. This is the highest over-under of the weekend. Neil, what are you expecting out of this game between the Jags and the Chiefs as we try to build some storylines into our lineups?
I'm expecting a high-scoring game. I'm excited for this one. This is probably my favorite game on the slate. I talked about, in DFS, I love Trevor Lawrence as a play. Of course, I'm looking at our favorite props for today, and it's unders across the board. So maybe we're not expecting quite the blow-up game that I am anticipating. But, that's, as we were talking about before the show, you can kind of take advantage of that on-nose advantage, maybe build some prop lineups where you are making different assumptions about how the game is going to go, and maybe I can make some where I am assuming that the game does blow up a little bit and take some overs. Of course, as I said, our best bets here are unders, and that's probably the smart way to play, but maybe we can play it both ways because I do think this one has blow up potential, and I could see the Jaguars. I think the Chiefs are probably the best team in the NFL. They're up there, but the Jaguars could, on any given Saturday, the Jaguars, I think, could make it a game for the Chiefs. I think that they do have a high-powered offense a little bit. So I'm excited for the game. How do you see this one going?
No, I like the Chiefs by quite a bit here. I think that they'll be up multiple touchdowns at halftime, and I don't think they're going to charge it up in the second half. But, I mean, what I think is interesting, so I think the way most people are going to walk into this game, and certainly the way they're going to play it over at No House Advantage. But let's say the Jaguars do win this game. Like, how do you envision that? It sounds like you're not picturing them, having a slug it out game and they win 17-16 over Patrick Mahomes. So there's room maybe to take some overs on the Jaguars passing game, running game. Travis Etienne, tell me how you see a Jaguars win if they could somehow pull that off.
Yeah, so I think that if the Jaguars do pull it off, it's not going to be a low-scoring game. That's just going to be the Jaguars' offense being able to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. These are 2 of the worst pass defenses in the league. In particular, the Jaguars' defense, 30th in terms of pass DVOA per Football Outsiders. But the Chiefs are also 20th in terms of pass DVOA. And I really think Trevor Lawrence has been coming on recently. I think he's going to be a star in this league, and I think that he's getting there quickly. So I think that there is some possibility that the Jaguars are able to just keep up with the Chiefs, that their offense can, overpower that Chiefs defense, which is not that great, middling defense to slightly below average. I think that it's possible the Jaguars can take advantage of it. So that's how I see it. See the Jaguars keeping it close is just the Jaguars offense being able to keep up with the Chiefs offense, which would be a very high scoring game. As you said, I'm not expecting a slugfest here. I think that if it is close, it's going to be, Jaguars putting up 28, Chiefs 30 or something along those lines. Not going to be a low scoring affair. So yeah, in that case, if you want to project it for, I think this game is going to stay close. Yeah, we're going to have more interest in some of those overs for the Jaguars. I think in particular, the passing game, maybe ETN as well. A little bit of a high line on ETN at 85.5 rushing yards. He does not hit that all that often. So I think I'd be more inclined if I were to, go against the tools a little bit and write up that game script. I think I'd be more inclined to take the over on like Christian Kirk's props, maybe Evan Ingram, those kind of props.
Yeah, and just looking at, so you have Trevor Lawrence, first of all. We have it as an under, but 255.5 passing yards in a high-scoring game, more than capable of getting there, especially if he's passing a ton in the second half. You mentioned Christian Kirk. Our projections are actually really close in the receiving yardage. We have it 65. The line is 67.5, so that's certainly attainable, certainly more so than, say, the receptions, if you're looking at him. And then, I think it's interesting is Evan Ingram. He had such a big game last week. He has really had a big second half for the Jaguars along with Trevor Lawrence. Now, our projections still have him as an under, but I mean, it's not impossible to see him 5 catches, 51 receiving yards if you do have this kind of high scoring game the Jags are keeping up.
Yeah, absolutely. Evan Ingram was actually, before I had access to our tools, Evan Ingram was somebody that I was rating up as, I kind of like the over on 4.5 receptions. I think we should take a step back and talk about what the tools actually say, because they're more likely to be correct than us trying to write up these wacky game scripts. But I do think, Evan Ingram, it's very close on our over under. We have the Slate under, but I think I kind of like the over on 4.5 receptions. He does have 5 or more receptions in 5 of the past 7 games. And the Jaguars have just been, doing better as Trevor Lawrence has been leaning more on Evan Ingram. So I kind of imagine that that's going to continue happening. So I actually kind of like the over on that one. Not one that I have a lot of confidence in, but I like that one as an off the board pick, that if you do want to get contrarian somewhere, maybe take the over on Evan Ingram 4.5 receptions, just because it's pretty close. And I think that there are, some trends that might lead me to think that Evan Ingram can hit the over there. And as we, talked about the game script, if the Jags are going to keep this close, it's probably through the air and they're probably throwing it a lot. So kind of like the over there. But yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, well, I was just going to say, to backtrack why we're looking at kind of some different game scripts here to play. You're playing against other people. So game theory is very much in the mix on No House advantage. If it's, let's say you take 10 unders, you're probably going to split the pot with quite a few people. Now, you got to find room for some overs, or maybe a lot of overs if you want to try to get a little bit different. That's just my experience playing on No House advantage this year. So that's, just kind of what we're looking at if, we are looking at, a certain kind of game where the Jaguars can maybe hang in it that other people might not have. Chiefs offense. So the one feel I have in this game is Kadarius Toney is going to have a role, whether it's running the ball, catching the ball. He's not on the board for the pick'em contest at No House advantage, but I think that's going to affect a lot of numbers. What are you expecting generally from the Chiefs offense today?
Yeah, so I agree with you. It is obviously I'm hesitant. The reason I say I want to take a step back is because I do the same thing in DFS. I go right to my off the board plays, my Neil's nobodies. I want to talk about the ones that are, we don't really like them, but I like going off the board. But I just think we need to take a step back just to say that, we, as I say, the tools like all of the unders here. I think that the tools obviously know more than I do. They've run a lot of sims. They give us real probabilities here. So I think that it's good to just look at some of these. It's interesting. So Kadarius Toney hasn't been all that involved so far. It's hard for me to get a read, because I think everybody's making the assumption that he is going to take a big step forward and be more involved. And I think that is likely. That seems like it is the likeliest outcome. But it's just so unclear at this point. So from a DFS perspective, that's affecting me. But for this, if you think that Kadarius Toney is going to be more involved in the game, I mean, we already like the under on Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 4.5 receptions. He's exceeded 4 receptions just once this entire season, all the way back in week 5. So it's pretty easy to take that under on 4.5 receptions for MVS. And then if you assume that Kadarius Toney is going to be more involved, just makes it even that much a better bet that MVS is going to be under 4.5 receptions. The past 2 weeks, 7 and 6 targets for MVS. He's turned that into 2 and 3 receptions. We have a 2.5 reception projection for MVS, and we have the under hitting on this one 87% of the time. So that is
it's a 10-pointer. Put it up top.
10-pointer. MVS under 4.5 receptions. Yeah, that's a pretty easy one, right? Do you like that one too?
Yes, that is a big one to get under on. And, again, even with Mecole Hardman being out, just looking at our chat, Brandon mentions that Smith-Schuster gets a lot of targets when Hardman is out. So, it could go a lot of different ways. We mentioned you have Toney in there. And then with this Chiefs offense, Jerick McKinnon has been a huge factor in the passing game. And there's that Travis Kelce guy, of course, eating up some big plays here. What do you think of Kelce? Our projections have him, pretty honest. And these are big numbers: 7.5 catches, 82.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, so our projections like the under on Travis Kelce. I tend to lean towards that. It's probably not one of the props that I would choose, except for, as we talk about in those trying to get contrarian kind of scenarios. If you don't want to play 10 of the top projected and run into duplicates, it is one that you could take the under on 7.5 receptions for Travis Kelce. That is one that probably not a lot of people are going to take. So I do think that it's an interesting contrarian play. I think that if I had to choose between the 82.5 receiving yards line and the 7.5 receptions line, I'd go with the under on the receptions rather than the receiving yards for Travis Kelce, just because I think that he is, our tools can tell you that he is less likely to hit that 7.5 receptions than he is to hit that receiving yard line. He hits the under there 61% of the time. He hits the under on the receiving yards 58% of the time. So that is my slight lean to take the under. If you're trying to get contrarian, the under on 7.5 receptions for Travis Kelce. Do you see it any differently?
No, I just think, one thing I try to keep in mind is if I'm building a game script, right? If it's a certain script, maybe I'm going under on the receptions line for Kelce, and then a different script, I go over on the receiving yardage line because our projections like the yardage more than, say, the receptions. And sometimes with the receivers, you can play kind of both ends of it depending on what kind of lineup you're putting together there. But we're talking about No House Advantage and their pickup contest. Again, $15,000 to first place in the contest today. You got to beat out 2,400 entrants, though there typically is a lot of overlay on the site, which we always like to see. So I always like to check it out about a half hour before the contest starts, 4:00 Eastern time, see what's going on in there and how many lineups you might want to put in. If you haven't signed up for No House Advantage, use the link below. $100 free deposit match, up to $100. You can go less, but if you put in $100, it'll give you another $100 to play with. You got $200 in your account. And you can also play versus the house, which is more just typical props. You can put, say, 2 together and hit for 2.5 times. You can put 5 together and hit for up to 20 times your entry, which is a big number when you look at other websites out there. And again, you can build a story and put some things that correlate. And our projections that we're talking about here, they are free. You can follow along, stokastic.com, go to NFL, drop down free tools and data, No House Advantage. And not only do you have for the pick'em contest, we also have optimal lineups. So if you want to mass enter in these pick'em contests, you can copy paste right out of Excel. You kind of edit and tweak it in your own way, whatever you like. A lot of different ways to play. So let's get into this other game, the Giants and the Eagles. Another game, I expect this to be relatively one-sided in favor of the Eagles. I thought the Giants played their best game of the season, bar none, last week, and they still barely got by a pretty mediocre Vikings team. So I really like the Eagles. Have been high on them all year. I don't expect this to be a very high-scoring game, though. I think the Giants like to kind of play a plodding style, and the Eagles are going to run the ball a lot. So that's why I'm going into this. Do you agree with that, Neil? How do you envision this game?
First of all, Pete, that is hurtful to call my Vikings mediocre. Although I do agree with you, they're pretty mediocre.
I'm waiting for my Jets to reach mediocre. So
Oh, next year the Jets are going to be better than mediocre. I think once they get a real quarterback, I'm afraid of that Jets team. It's got to be exciting for you. Yeah, I think I agree with you.
We've been a quarterback short for 30, 50, 60 years. So I don't know.
Yeah, that is true. but there, I think there will be some available. Maybe Aaron Rodgers. You can dream at least about Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, we'll see. But in this game, I think I'm with you. I think that this one is the one that I am writing up to be more of. I think the Eagles are just going to curb stomp the Giants. I don't really see it staying all that close. I'm with you actually on both of them. I think that the likeliest outcome in both of these games is a blowout. I think the Chiefs blow out the Jaguars. I think the Eagles blow out the Giants. I think that the Jaguars have a little bit of a better shot of keeping it close against the Chiefs. And I like what's going to happen more. I guess from a DFS or from a prop perspective, I like writing that one up as a keeping it close more than this one. It's harder to write up with the Giants just because, man, how do the Giants keep this one close? I guess through the air, but the Eagles are a bit of a run funnel defense. It's a number one pass defense in the league by DVOA. So good luck. I think Daniel Jones is going to have to run the ball a little bit like he did last week against the Vikings and scramble, but it's a hard path here for the Giants, no doubt. part of what stuff is also like, so the Eagles are on the year 21st in terms of rush DVOA, but for the past, like since like week 13, they've actually been like top 5 in the league in terms of rush DVOA. So like, yeah, they're theoretically are a run funnel defense based on their year-long rush DVOA, but like they're just good in both aspects of the game defensively. So it's like, how are the Giants going to keep up with the Eagles offensively? It's just such a tough spot for the Giants. So that's part of the reason I think it's more likely that this one blows out, just because the Giants could really struggle with this Eagles defense, but you never know. So yeah, I think it's going to be a blowout, but as you said, I like this thought process of yours of trying to write for different game scripts, like what is going to happen to maybe go for a different game script. I think that would probably be Saquon Barkley. Like probably, we lean into the Eagles have not been great against the run all year. Maybe it's a little bit fluky that they've been better recently. And Saquon Barkley is obviously as talented a running back as you're going to find in the league. So I think you consider taking some Saquon Barkley overs if you want to get a little bit contrarian, write up a game script in which the Giants are able to keep it close.
And look, that might even be a game where it's not all that close, because the Giants are going to get away completely from Saquon Barkley, I have to think. Now, they might utilize him more in the passing game than the running game, but we're looking at 72.5 rushing yards on Saquon Barkley. I have to think he's getting at least 15 carries in this game.
Right. Yeah, he should be seeing plenty of action. And, at least early in the game, that's probably going to be the Giants' game plan, right? They're going to want to keep the ball out of the Eagles' offense's hands, and they're going to want to run the ball, slow down the game a bit by keeping it on the ground. So, yeah, my guess would be that they do try to run it more early in the game. Whether they're going to be, as you say, Saquon's going to be involved in the second half regardless. It's just a matter of, is he going to be involved as a runner or just as a pass catcher more? Our tools like the under on Saquon Barkley just a bit. So the line is 72.5 rushing yards. We have him at 65.3 rushing yards. Obviously, that's close enough that it's, if you want to write up the game script of the Giants are going to keep, they're going to keep it close. They're going to keep running it with Saquon throughout the game. Then in that case, I might be inclined, if we're writing up this game script, maybe I'd be inclined to take the over on Saquon with some unders from the Eagles. Like if the Giants are able to keep the game close, slow it down a bit on the ground, maybe that's a way you could get contrarian, is right. Take the over on this Saquon rushing yards and then take some unders on guys like AJ Brown. And we like the under on AJ Brown, 7.5 receptions. Anyway, that is one of our best bets on the entire. I think that might be our best bet on the entire slate. Yeah. Brown is averaging 5.2 receptions per game this year. And, the Eagles just have no real incentive to air it out against this Giants defense that is worst in the league in terms of rush DVOA, 32nd in the league. We have Brown projected for 4.7 receptions in this game and the under on 7.5, hitting 88% of the time. So I think that's one way you could write up a game script and maybe not play the most obvious, is take that over on Saquon Barkley, and in the same lineup, take the under on AJ Brown. And then a lot of our best unders come from this game with Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith. They both have lines of 5.5 receptions. You could take the unders there as well. I'm liking this game script we're writing up.
Yeah. And the other aspect with No House Advantage is a lot of like hidden yards with the pick'em contest, at least, where we don't have a play, right? So let's say Jalen Hurts, he's capable of running for 80 yards in this game.
Right.
That's not one of the lines in the pick'em contest. So you could take a lot of unders for the Eagles. Still, if the Eagles blow out the Giants or win convincingly, and there's just a lot of other areas for the Eagles to find some offense that won't necessarily show up here. Again, big numbers for, say, AJ Brown. I suppose, Quez Watkins is kind of an interesting guy because when he makes a play, it could be a big play. We have really low numbers here, 1.5 catches, 19.5 receiving yards. Do you like messing with those guys that are kind of high ceiling when we don't need a high ceiling in these kinds of contests?
Wait, sorry, Quez Watkins we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Quez Watkins, we like some of our best overs are these guys, like Quez Watkins, the Daniel Bellinger taking the overs there. Yeah, I think that Quez Watkins, I mean, given that the line is under 2, like he just needs 2 receptions to exceed his reception prop. I do have some interest there. We've got it at 1.5 receptions is the line on Quez Watkins. We have the over hitting 56% of the time. So not, the strongest bet on the board, but we do have it more likely than not to hit. And that's one that not a lot of people are going to go to. So I do like that Quez Watkins line a little bit. What do you think of it?
It's low. I just, those guys, I usually try to stay away from the receivers because, like in DFS, we want to play the receivers because you have the high ceiling, but with the props, it's not. I try to stay away from the receivers as much as I can. Now, look, we only have 4 games today, so I'm gonna have to play some receivers. But generally, they scare the heck out of me, and I try to not make that stand on someone like Quez Watkins if I can avoid it. The Giants passing game gets interesting because there's so many different guys that can contribute. Isaiah Hodgins has really come on. Not monster numbers here, 4.5 catches, 50.5 receiving yards. Richie James, he was able to hit the overs, I believe, last week. He got to, I think he needed 4 catches against the Vikings, and he got there at the end. You mentioned the tight end situation there. Darius Slayton as well. I mean, they just spread the ball out so much. They're kind of like the Jaguars in that you don't know exactly which receiver is going to be the one that gets enough run on a given day.
Yeah, and it's even, I think it's even worse than the Jaguars, because the Jaguars, like, you at least have some idea of who's their wide receiver 1, who's their wide receiver 2. With the Giants, I'm not even sure that we know. Like, I think Isaiah Hodgins has probably ascended to be the wide receiver 1, but I'm not even. Are you confident in that? Do you think Isaiah Hodgins is the wide receiver 1 for the Giants? I'm not that confident.
I think he is their wide receiver 1, but he's not a wide receiver 1, right?
I think that's a fair way to state that. Yeah, he's not. Maybe he is. I have seen a little bit of chatter that maybe he's better.
He's got great hands.
He's given credit for. I don't know. But yeah, I think that these guys, it's really hard to know from game to game who is going to hit for the Giants between Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James, Darius Slayton. I do like to throw Daniel Bellinger in there. He's obviously less likely to hit than the receivers are, but another talented guy who's going to be on the field for a majority of snaps. Rookie tight ends, not generally the most productive, but he's had a few pretty nice games this year. So yeah, I think that those are guys that, we like the unders on all of these receivers, and then the over on Bellinger, just because the line is all the way down at 2.5 on him. I think you can write up some game scripts. Maybe if you want to take overs on the Giants, maybe you take overs on the receiving yards for the Eagles, maybe not receptions, but receiving yards. Like, just assume that they're able to move the ball with like big chunk plays here, and that, you get over on the yardage for the Eagles, maybe more likely than the receptions. How do you play that with if you're trying to take the overs on the, do you agree with that? Like, if you're trying to take the overs on the receiving props for the Giants, do you think that it makes more sense to take the overs on also the receiving yards props for the Eagles rather than the reception props?
Yeah, well, you're playing for a higher scoring game then, right? Where Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones are going to have to pass the ball a little bit and keep this game going. Like, Jones and Kirk Cousins last week, there were a lot of overs with the receiving yards for players on both teams. Kind of the exception was Justin Jefferson of all guys. But, when you look at it in this game, you got to play for more overs. I think when you don't have the Daniel Jones rushing yards, we don't have the Jalen Hurts rushing yards on the board here, it's harder to see like these guys just throwing the ball up and down the field. I think both guys will be using their legs a lot tonight. And again, with the pickup contest, we don't have them. Now, if you play versus the house, we can get to that kind of thing. So, Jalen Hurts is 51.5 rushing yards, which is pretty much right at our projection. You can play rushing attempts with Hurts, which I like at 9.5 rushing attempts. I'd lean towards the over. And then Daniel Jones, and I'll let you go right after. You're looking at some rushing yardage on him, and I can't find him immediately. But what do you make of some of the rushing abilities if you are playing versus the house with these quarterbacks in this game?
Oh, do we have rushing props versus us? I should find.
Well, so we have them. They're behind the paywall over at Stokastic. If you check that out, so I'm giving you some freebies here, guys, with some of our projections as far as the rushing yards go. Now, the pickup contest, that's all free for No House Advantage at Stokastic.com. But if we're looking at Jalen Hurts, I mean, we're just it's building those game scripts, right? As far as that goes, if you are playing versus the house as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Jalen Hurts is a little bit tricky just because so oftentimes running quarterbacks are more likely to run in big games like this. Like they just, sometimes quarterbacks are hesitant, and obviously Jalen Hurts doesn't really fall in that bucket. Hesitant. Some quarterbacks are more hesitant to run during the regular season or when games aren't as meaningful. And then the playoffs come and they're just, running it out, trying to pick up first downs any way they can, a bit more grit. But on the other hand, Jalen Hurts does have kind of a hurt shoulder, or at least might have still a pretty hurt shoulder. So he might be a little bit disinclined to run. Do you know off the top of your head, have you been able to find the rushing yards prop? Because it's
for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts 51.5.
Ooh, 51.5 for Hurts. That's a good line.
It's right on our projection.
Yeah. It's probably just not one that I would use, to be honest, just because I don't have a strong take one way or the other. I think as you say, it's he could run a little bit more because of the playoffs, but then also he does have the hurt shoulder. So it's probably not a line that I would take one way or the other.
It was week 18. I mean, they're running those QB sneaks with Jalen Hurts when he's like fresh off the sprained shoulder. They're playing for the number 1 seed, so it mattered against the Giants, but they had to kind of grind that out against the Giants' second team. So that's I like the over on rushing attempts. He has to get at least 10. Okay. And when you're looking at least 3 QB sneaks, you got to think for the Eagles on those 3rd shorts, 4th and shorts. I think we could find a way to get there. But yeah, you can check out playing versus the house as well. Be sure to check out our lineup generator, really cool tool that's improving every single week over at Stokastic.com. Now that's included when you sign up for our DFS packages, but it's going to allow you to save a lot of time building lineups, going to spit out lineups that make sense, and you can determine just how contrarian you want to be, right? We're talking about contrarianism and no house advantage contest, DFS contests. You're trying to beat a lot more people typically. So there's room to, play to win a big GBP and try to win, I don't know, a couple $100,000 on the sites today. And you can get super contrarian, or you can play cash games and turn it back the other way and be a lot more conservative. What I like is the game scripts where if I have a feel for a game, I think a game's going to be super high scoring or low scoring. I can, tell the lineup generator to add 6 points here, 6 points there to the expected point total, or maybe play for a more defensive game. That's something that I have a lot of fun with because I try to walk in with like, hey, this is the way I see the game going. Now I have something to root for clearly, rather than just, checking my phone throughout the day and seeing what's hanging in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Always fun to write up a game script and have something to cheer for during the game. I like this. I hadn't thought much about on this in particular. Like NBA, it's a little bit harder to write up game scripts, but like for NFL slates, just writing up a game script and, not just taking the best lines, but maybe mixing in some of those that are, less positive EV, but maybe get you a little bit contrarian and it works in a game script. I really like this idea that you have here.
Yeah, I think there was a Patriots Bills game this year that I had the perfect, so it's 7-6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So whatever that adds up to is like 27 points or something. I got it perfect, 28, I think. And I won like 8 times my money. And I was like, that's not great. So, you just play all unders. But I remember there's a game, Saints Cardinals. It's like a Monday night game. I wasn't expecting a whole lot of points. And nobody was. And then it was this crazy Andy Dalton threw like 2 picks right away. And it went all overs. And it was one person who won at the top who had a bunch of overs. And it's like, well, there's clearly some room to be a little different than what the projections might tell you, just with the game theory aspect of it. Because you do see a lot of unders on that site because the props are just inflated for the pick'em contest. I mean, you can look versus the house and you see that they're more in the pick'em contest. So sometimes you got to stretch a little bit in order to differentiate yourself and get yourself to the top of the board in these NFL contests. But big Saturday to come. You got big plans. How do you take in your NFL games beyond, crunching lineups during it on the laptop? Favorite food? What we got going? What's the plan?
Yeah. I got a friend's birthday party tonight, but before I go there, I've got Live Before Lock with Greg later today. I've also got to do my showdown videos on demand for how I'm setting my fantasy cruncher. So yeah, those are my plans for the day.
Busy man. Yeah. And you can check out Neil's favorite plays throughout the day as well. I forgot the nickname for him already. Neil's Nobodies. Neil's Nobodies. Yes. Neil's Nobodies.
Smarmy Tank. Smarmy Tank was who coined the term Neil's Nobodies.
Neil's Nobodies. We need some nobodies. Not so much on No House Advantage, but definitely in some of those other contests that you might be playing. Hey, NFL Deeper Dives coming your way at 2:30 Eastern time. So much more on your way here on the Stokastic DFS channel just a couple hours from now. For Neil Orfield, I'm Pete McCarthy. Enjoy your last NFL Saturday.